Hello and welcome to the show, broadcasting from Israel amid the latest escalation in the region. With us in studio today to comment on the latest unfolding events is retired Brigadier General Amir Avivi of the IDSF. Welcome, Amir.
Thank you.
But first, the fragile calm following the U.S.-Israel war with Iran has been shattered, with direct strikes resuming between the two sides. Overnight, Iran fired multiple rounds of ballistic missiles toward northern and central Israel, triggering sirens and sending millions into shelters. The IDF says the missiles were intercepted with no major damage or injuries reported. Within hours, Israel struck back, targeting military sites inside Iran, including air defense systems in western and central areas of the country. The military has released first color footage from those strikes showing the destruction of systems used to target aircraft, with secondary explosions indicating stored missiles at the site. Iran says its initial attack was retaliation for an Israeli strike on a Hezbollah command center in Beirut, and has warned any further action would be met with a stronger response. And now, Iran has announced it is halting its attacks on Israel for the time being. In a statement, Iran's emergency military command said the cessation of operations is in effect, but warned that if Israel continues what it called aggression, including in southern Lebanon, a much more severe and crushing response will follow. Israel, meanwhile, says its operations are expanding air superiority over Iran as it continues to remove threats to its civilians. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is holding security consultations as the IDF signals the conflict has resumed under Operation Roaring Lion, with possible several more days of fighting reportedly expected. The military says it is operating alone but in full coordination with U.S. Central Command, even as the confrontation shifts back from diplomacy to the battlefield. And with us in studio is Amir Avivi. Amir, let me ask you, let's start with the big picture here. Are we back at war?
War never stopped. We're all the time in war. You know, we had 40 days of attack together with the U.S., with the Central Command. And then the Central Command continued a war operation. They are doing a full blockade on the Iranian ports. This hasn't stopped for a minute. This is war. Doing a blockade on a country, on all its ports, it's a serious act of war. But we decided to focus on Hezbollah. We understand that we have to, defend our northern towns in Israel. And we have been focusing on Hezbollah. And Iran is trying to connect between the Iranian arena and Lebanon. They are very, very worried about Hezbollah's situation. You know, in Israel, we talk a lot about the fallen soldiers, about the really hurdles that our Israeli towns have in the north. But the reality of the matter is that Hezbollah is in a very, very bad shape. Iran is worried that they might collapse, and they don't want to see attacks in the Dahya, so they sent a message. We are willing to fight for that. We want to safeguard the Hezbollah, and if you shoot the Dahya, we'll attack. Knowing what the prices will be, knowing what Israel's capabilities are, they still decided to shoot 25 ballistic missiles. 2 of them came from Yemen. We intercepted all of them. And it's a big success of our air defense together with the U.S. And we retaliated.
So Iran is tying itself to Hezbollah and any potential strike on Beirut. They even mentioned southern Lebanon in their comments. Does that mean that any Israeli action in Beirut or southern Lebanon could now lead to direct Iranian retaliation every time?
So we are determined to continue fighting Hezbollah. We are not going to let Iran dictate to Israel where to fight in the Lebanese front. And if they will challenge us again, then we'll have to attack fiercely. The IDF has been preparing for the last 2 months. For the IDF, this is a continuation of the same operation, of Roaring Lion. A lot of preparation, a lot of readiness. They have a huge bank of targets to attack in Iran. We saw 2 waves of attack. One wave, the first one, was intended to degrade again their air defense systems. Mm-hmm. They tried to restore some of these capabilities, and the IDF attacked several of these sites, renewing their freedom of operation of the Air Force. Mm-hmm. The second wave was dramatic. We attacked again the petrochemical industries of Iran. This is a major blow on Iranian economy and ability to produce ballistic missiles. We saw only at the end of the 40 days an attack on the petrochemical industries. Mm-hmm. And now, again, we started with that and inflicted a major blow to their economy. And the IDF is ready to resume a full-scale attack and attack fiercely all the targets that they have been preparing for the last 2 months. But now it's up to the Iranians. If they're going to renew the attacks, that will be an opportunity for us to really attack fiercely and degrade them furthermore with our overall goal to really bring down this regime and achieve the goals of war.
Amir, stay with us. We'll be back to you in a moment. Sirens warning of rocket fired from Lebanon have sounded in Kiryat Shmona and surrounding communities in northern Israel as the escalation in the north continues. The apparent attack comes shortly after reports of Israeli strikes in southern Lebanon. This latest exchange follows a broader escalation between Israel and Iran and its proxies, triggered by an Israeli airstrike on a Hezbollah command center in Beirut's Dahieh district. The strike came after renewed Hezbollah missile fire toward northern Israeli cities and was meant to send a clear message. Attacks on Israeli civilians will be met with direct strikes on Hezbollah infrastructure, even in Beirut. More on this from ILTV, Steve Leibowitz.
The airstrike on Dahieh targeted what the IDF described as a Hezbollah headquarters used to direct attacks against Israel and Israeli forces operating in southern Lebanon. The attack followed a Hezbollah rocket launch toward northern Israeli cities earlier in the day.
תקפנו בדחיה בעקבות הירי הבלתי פוסק של חיזבאללה לעבר יישובי הצפון. צה"ל ימשיך לפעול בכל רחבי לבנון ויעמיק את הפגיעה בארגון הטרור חיזבאללה. לא נאפשר המשך ירי לעבר אזרחי מדינת ישראל.
Officials said Israel coordinated the strike with Washington and that the United States understands Israel's position that attacks on its territory will be met with direct action against Hezbollah leadership and infrastructure, and Beirut was not off limits. 100 days into the regional conflict, Israel's message is that it will continue to enforce its red lines against both Hezbollah and Iran and is prepared for whatever response may follow. Meanwhile, the combined ground and air operations in South Lebanon are ongoing. The IDF said it uncovered and destroyed what it describes as one of Hezbollah's most important underground command complexes in southern Lebanon, a massive tunnel network built over more than a decade with direct Iranian funding and support.
בלבנון כוחותינו חיסלו בשבוע האחרון בלבד 350 מחבלים. 350 מחבלים בשבוע האחרון. הם תפסו את רכס הבופור, הם מצאו שם תשתית ענק.
IDF footage shows the extensive underground facility located beneath Beaufort Ridge area, just 6 kilometers from Metula. According to the military, the complex served as Hezbollah's central command and control hub for operations across the sector. The military said it planned the operation for months, waiting for the right operational opportunity to seize the strategic high ground and eliminate the underground network. Hezbollah operatives are said to have fled the site before Israeli forces moved in. The destruction of the Beaufort tunnel system is part of a broader effort to create a new security reality along the northern border and prevent Hezbollah from reestablishing its military infrastructure close to Israeli communities. With Hezbollah under pressure, Iran and Israel today back to war, and with Israel vowing to enforce its red lines in Lebanon, few expect the fighting to end soon, despite the ceasefires that exist on paper.
And we now go to our correspondent, Devo Klein, who is currently in Tel Aviv. Hi, Devo. Thanks for joining.
Hi, Sivan. Thanks for having me on.
So, Devo, what can you tell us about what's going on the ground? What are the latest developments, especially where the north and Lebanon is concerned?
Right, so plenty of developments coming in. It's honestly a little bit hard to keep track. The IDF Home Front Command is also trying to keep track and let civilians know what to expect. You know, children here are waiting to know if they're going to be in school tomorrow or not. I just want to make a little bit of sense of this timeline, which is really crucial as of the timing of this show, as of the filming of this show. The timeline is as such. The last siren that we experienced here in Tel Aviv was at 9:30 a.m., thousands sheltering from that Iranian ballistic missile making its way over to central Israel. But that was at 9:30 a.m. This afternoon, the IRGC obviously announced that they will cease fire on Israel should the IDF end what they called aggression on Lebanon, especially in Beirut. The IDF did not seem to get that message, as after that message came out from the Islamic Republic, there were new reports coming out of southern Lebanon that the IDF is attacking Hezbollah infrastructure in the Tsur area in southern Lebanon. That is the last update that we have here. So in the, just hours ago, the latest update was, will the IDF attack? Will they not? And should they be attacking? Well, the latest is now that they have attacked. So Israelis here are really holding their breaths and waiting to see what's going to happen in terms of the Home Front Command guidelines. As of now, as of the latest updates, there will be no school or workplaces tomorrow, on the exception that you can get to a shelter in time, in which case there are certain workplaces that have been permitted to operate. But despite those guidelines, Ben Gurion Airport is still at a cap. The IDF Home Front Command urging Ben Gurion Airport to cease the amount of passengers able to be in the terminal to 2,500. That's also not changed. Now, the Israeli Education Minister, Kish, he's also sending out a lot of announcements, waiting for updates from the Home Front Command. He started out by saying that school should presume as normally, and then he backtracked and said if the Home Front Command doesn't allow it, then there will not be school. But now after the Islamic regime, they put out an announcement that they would stop firing if Israel stops their attacks in Lebanon. Now all of that has changed. So the real big question right now that everybody's going to be asking is not just will the IDF be attacking, but should they? We call this tit for tat. It's this sort of a terminology where, Israel reserves the right to defend itself from attacks, both from Hezbollah in Lebanon, but also from the Islamic regime in Iran. But now the Iranians are saying that they will attack should we attack Beirut. So it's really a tit for tat situation, and we're just going to wait on the ground and see what the developments are. But right now, it's definitely very tricky.
And it appears that Hezbollah has launched strikes into Israel at the moment as well. Deva, what can you tell us about the atmosphere in Tel Aviv, where you're at the moment?
Right. So there's a lot of people out and about, Israelis somewhat making light of the situation, as we normally do. This is not a situation that anybody here is estranged to. Unfortunately, we've grown quite accustomed to the constant sheltering and the Home Front Command guidelines. So people hovering about next to shelters and making sure that they are staying safe and staying protected, as I am right now, right next to a shelter, should a siren go off. But by and large, Sivan, the environment here is quite relaxed. Israelis showing that resilience that we're so known for, which is going on and continuing with our lives despite the ongoing threats and despite this uncertainty coming out of the region and all of these IDF prompts.
Devo Klein, thank you very much.
Thank you.
In Israel, everything can change in an instant. That's why Hadassah hospitals don't wait for a crisis to prepare. In times of trouble, our hospitals react quickly, rushing units underground, maternity wards, cancer units, ICUs, ensuring our life-changing care continues. Soldiers are saved, civilians healed. But more underground facilities are urgently needed. Advanced operating rooms, fortified recovery spaces, and additional beds. The people of Israel always need to be ready for whatever comes next. Please visit Hadassah.org and give today, because we don't know what tomorrow will bring. Hadassah. Life-changing.
And U.S. President Donald Trump responded to the events on Truth Social, initially calling on Israel and Iran to immediately stop the shooting. He then mentioned both countries are looking toward a ceasefire. Earlier, he expressed he was frustrated by the latest escalation, warning that the exchange of attacks could jeopardize a nuclear agreement he claims was just days away. Speaking to Fox News, Trump said he was not happy with Israel's strike on Hezbollah's targets in Beirut, which was followed hours later by Iranian missile fire toward Israel. Trump said a nuclear agreement with Iran was very close and could have been signed as early as this week. He said the latest attacks come at a critical moment in the talks and that Iran's missile launches certainly aren't going to help negotiations. Despite the escalation, Trump indicated diplomatic efforts are continuing as Washington pushes for a deal aimed at preventing Iran from obtaining a nuclear weapon. And as Iran and its proxies appear to be testing new red lines and questions grow over U.S. constraints on Israel, we are now joined by Hussein Abdul Hussein, research fellow at the Foundation for the Defense of Democracies. Thank you so much for joining.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for joining. Hussein, Abdul Hussein, research fellow at the Foundation for the Defense of Democracies. Thank you so much for joining. Thank you so much for joining.
Thanks for having me on.
So in a recent tweet, you wrote that every bullet Israel shot in the direction of Lebanon since 1949 was in response to attacks from the Lebanese side, and that Iran now illegally injects itself into the fight. Can you elaborate on this?
Well, sure. On the Lebanon, the minute Israel declared itself, Lebanon, the Lebanese army joined the other Arab armies to try to kill Israel in its infancy. Now, that did not work, and the two sides had a truce in place. But after that, the Palestinian organization started operating out of Lebanon and launching attacks against Israel. Israel had to respond, eventually ejected the Palestinians. Then the Palestinians were succeeded by Hezbollah. Then, Israel had to respond to Hezbollah as well. So if you go back all the way to the creation of Israel, you will find out that the first bullet that was fired from the north southward started in Lebanon. And since then, Israel has been trying to either respond or to restore quiet in a way across the border. On the Iranian side, Iran is doing exactly what the late Hassan Nasrallah was trying to do. He insisted to tie the Lebanon war with the Gaza war. It doesn't work this way. You can't really dictate on Israel what to do, how to defend itself, or against who and when and where. The Iranians are now saying, we specify what areas in Lebanon you can strike. We specify when you can strike. This undermines the sovereignty of the state of Israel, even though from an Iranian perspective, it might look like it is legal. It is against international law. And yesterday's attack was illegal, was an attack by Iran on the state of Israel. If for some reason the Iranians didn't learn the lesson of Nasrallah, and for some reason they continue to do what they call the unity of the battlefields, which doesn't make sense to anyone.
So some analysts suggest that Israel may need to respond to Iranian attacks forcefully, even if it goes against U.S. preferences. How realistic is that, do you think, Hussein?
Very. And I think Israel must. And the reason I say that is that, like you mentioned, Israel and Hezbollah are trying to measure the red lines. They're trying to take the measurements of President Trump and of everyone who's allied with the United States. And frankly, they've gotten away with a lot of things. They closed the Hormuz Strait. They target the UAE, Kuwait, and yesterday Saudi Arabia with impunity. And they wait and see whether the United States will respond, and we have not responded. So they tried the same thing with Israel. And even though it looked as if, the United States was trying to handcuff Israel, Israel did not stop and Israel responded. So now they know that, okay, Israel will respond, the others did not respond. So they're taking the measurements, they're trying to push their limits, see where these things stop. Israel has no alternative but to respond. Otherwise, Iranians will start dictating on everyone, including on Israel, how things should work in the region.
I'd like to bring Amir Avivi back into the conversation. Amir, is there a real risk that Washington will try to restrain Israel militarily at this point? And what should Israel do if that happens?
I don't think it should be the interest of Washington to restrain Israel in Lebanon. At the end of the day, if we want normalization between Lebanon and Israel, Hezbollah must be dismantled. Mm-hmm. And the way to dismantle it is attack until they are weak enough and the Lebanese government can actually deal with them. Of course, dealing with them will require the U.S. to help Lebanon build a relevant Lebanese army that will be, strong enough really to deal with the challenges. As for Iran, I want to make it crystal clear. There is no scenario that they are going to give up their nuclear capabilities without fighting. There is no talking, no negotiations that can get the Iranians to the point that they will say, we are giving up these capabilities. For them, giving up the uranium and their capability to produce nuclear weapons means the end of the regime. Mm-hmm. And the only way to reach this point is to bring them on their knees. Unconditional surrender, as the president said from the beginning, this regime understands only force. And until they surrender, we cannot reach the goals of war, and they're not going to be reached by talking. Mm-hmm. We need to take action, and we need to deal with them.
And Hussein, how much do U.S. domestic politics play a part in all of this? The midterms, the energy prices, the upcoming World Cup, all of that. how much does it actually impact decision-making in the United States?
Maybe it does, but I don't think it should. If the economy was a measure, then President Trump wouldn't have become president because the economy was doing good under Joe Biden, and he still lost. For the other stuff, look, I think even if President Trump gets a great deal with the Iranians before the midterm election, the chances will be high that the Republican Party will at least lose the House in Congress, and that's independent of foreign policy. Foreign policy does not really play a big role in domestic U.S. Politics and policies, even though tend to think that they do. So if this is the case, I would say that President Trump will have to do what he has to do. He is not on the ballot. No matter what happens, he will be the president after the election. He will be calling the shots on whether we go to war again with Iran or whether we get to an agreement. So I don't really think these elections are as instrumental as they were, say, in 1980, when Iran managed to throw President Carter out, and then there was a new president with a new way of dealing with Iran. I think this time is totally different, and the midterm elections are not really like the presidential election.
Mm-hmm. And Amir, do you think that Iran and Hezbollah, they might be sensing weakness in the United States at this time?
I think they're confused.
Mm-hmm.
They see on one hand the blockade, and President Trump mentioned he's going to continue the blockade, and this is a serious act of war. On the other hand, he's talking all the time about, an agreement, and we are just about to reach an agreement. I don't think they understand what he's talking about. Yeah, they're really confused, and they think that maybe he's under pressure from the Gulf states, the upcoming elections of the midterms, the prices of oil, different issues that are bothering him. They believe they can talk it out. They think they can go on like that 2 years until he's gone, and then they go back, doing what they did before. And this cannot happen. Mm-hmm. We really need to seize the moment, continue the blockade, but also consider going back to a kinetic war until they surrender.
Hussein, do you think that there's any daylight right now between Washington and Jerusalem?
I don't believe there is, but you have to always keep in mind that things are different. They look different from over here. We're 6,000 miles away from you guys. Things are really an existential threat to you. You feel these things. You have to run to shelters all the time. We don't. And to us, it's much easier. It's a war far away. We don't have to run to shelters, and we can just say we're waiting for the deal. I think what we're not doing right is that we can't really stay in limbo for a long time. We either have to win this war against Iran or we have to lose. But we can't just keep on saying that we're neither fighting, we're neither getting to an agreement. Hormuz is shut down. No one knows when it'll open. There were missiles yesterday coming out of Iran in the direction of Israel. So this limbo, I think, is not really to our interest in the United States. It's not to the interest of Israel, certainly. It's only to the interest of Iran. Iran lives off war. They like it this way, because if they don't fight, they don't really have an economy or a country to manage. It's only a tyranny that fires missiles. So I don't think there's daylight, but I think we have different considerations, even though both of us are pushing in the same direction.
Hussein Abdul Hussein and Amir Avivi, thank you both very much.
Thank you.
And let's take a look at the weather forecast. Cloudy skies and partly rainy showers are expected around most of the country tonight, with temperatures reaching lows of 15 degrees Celsius or 62 degrees Fahrenheit. Then tomorrow we'll see clear skies alongside steady temperatures, seeing highs of 26 degrees Celsius or 79 degrees Fahrenheit. That's a wrap for today's news. For the latest updates from Israel on all your devices, be sure to follow our ILTV channels and keep up with us on social media. That's at ILTV_Israel on all platforms. You can also catch us on Screen IL with 24/7 live coverage. Stay informed with the latest news straight from the heart of Israel. I'm Sivan Raviv. Be well, be safe, and thank you so much for watching.